Alright, welcome everybody to our midweek video. We should all have a couple files, right? An index and a main CSS file, and it might look something like this. And just to go over with our link to our style sheet, if we have an href of a file path of main.css, that means that main.css needs to be in the same folder as our index. If we have a folder titled CSS and our main file is in there, then this path needs to indicate that we need to go to that CSS folder, then look for the file like that. Now that we have that working, we're going to be looking at kind of how we can start to break apart the site and style it any way we want. In class we learned about classes, so we can do .class1, right? And we can go ahead and add anything we want. Background color, right? We did red, I think, in class. And then, of course, anything in here, a P, we can go class equals, what do we just call it? Class 1. And remember, what our class equals here is the same thing, but with the dot for a class, with a period preceding the class name. Always make sure everything's saved. And one thing we can do, we can come down to here to run and debug. We can click this, and the first time you'll probably see it pop up here in the center, and it'll ask you like what browser probably you want to use. I think it said Chrome web app or whatever, and you just select one of those that you want to use, whatever browser, and that should be a quick way to go ahead and pull up your index. But make sure that when you do it, you're on the index, not on the CSS file. So as we look to do more with CSS, I want you guys to remember we have the w3schools.com. If you go to here, go tutorials, like learn CSS, there's going to be a lot of tutorials that'll show you kind of how to do different things, right? So now we have, again, our couple little paragraphs or whatever you have, and our main CSS. So one thing we can do is images. So I've already downloaded an image and put it in this folder. So now we have an image within the same folder as the index file, okay? So how we can display that image is open an image tag, right, space source, and then we need to give it a path, okay? So again, the image file is in the same folder as index.html. So all we need to do is leave small.png. Or whatever your image is, find an image on the internet, download it, throw it in your folder, and then we can go ahead and do this as well. So image source is our leaf small.png, and then we can do an alternative text, and we'll do small leaf, and then we'll close out that tag. An image doesn't have a closing tag, it closes itself out. So then we can run this, and there we have our little leaf image. Okay, so this little leaf image is from a site. It's a really just simple site of mine that I have for our farm to help communicate with people that support us. And I use this image. Now I can take this image, I can copy that image address, I can go back in here, and so this is my relative path, right? This is the path to the file on my server, right, or on my computer. But I can also come in here and I can paste that path to another server, right, using a absolute path of http:// and then the location of the file, eternalharvestfarm.com/ all of that fun jazz, where that file is stored. Now the thing is to remember about this: if I make it, my image is a absolute path to a image, on another website. If they move that image or delete that image, your image will not show up, because it's only pulling it at the time you load the site from theirs. So it's not storing it on your computer, storing it on your site. It's simply pulling it down from their site. So yeah, you can do absolute path or we can do relative paths. And if we look here, we save it, we go back here, and it will look exactly the same because it's the same exact image. I just happen to have a local copy versus the absolute path to the copy on the internet. So those are images. Now we can get to links. Let's do links. Open an A tag. A tag is for links, and then instead of a source, we want to give it a reference, an href equals, and then this is where our link will go to. Now if we want to go somewhere on the internet, right, we need http:// and then we can go to google.com, right? So let's make a link that goes to Google, and what we put in here, so in Visual Studio it'll create that closing A tag, and so we have a href and then our link, and then we close out that tag, and in between the opening and closing tag, this is what will be the link. So I can type visit Google, yay, okay? And so this is inside the tags. That will be my link. That's my link, you see? So visit Google, click it, where's it go? Google, yay. If it doesn't go to Google, make sure that you have your A tag opened, href, in quotes is the link, and then close it. And then type what you want to actually be displayed for the link, and then close that A tag. So whatever we put inside the opening and closing A tags is our link. So what that means we can do is we can cut this, paste this in before our image, okay? Created us a closing tag, let's delete that. Now let's come after the image and close our link tag. All right, now we close the A tag, okay? So again, we open the link tag, we have a reference of where that link should go, and we closed it. Now everything until the closing A tag is what will be the actual clickable link. So I come back in here, those words are gone because, well, they're not in our file anymore. But what's between the opening and closing link tags? Our image. Our image is now our link. We click our image and we go to Google. So you can basically make anything a link. Whatever is inside of that will be the link. An extreme example of that is I can cut this. I can open my link. We don't want to close it there. I can open my link at the beginning of a document. Refresh. Everything is that link. Okay? So anything inside the opening and the closing will be the link. So now we have some links, an image, and we can learn a little more HTML. Remember, by going to W3 Schools, okay? And we can learn links, right? We can learn a little bit more about that. W3 Schools, tutorials, HTML, links, images. We just learned that. So whatever we want to learn, explore this, learn about different things. One thing I want to show you about that alt tag, right? We can go into a try it. These are pretty cool. When you come in here, it'll show you an example, right? Try it for yourself. It'll pull up a little sample site for you, and here's the output of it, right? So what if my path to the image is wrong? What if I tell it to look in the images folder for this file, right? There is no images folder. It doesn't find it. It gives me the little broken link to an image. I don't know what you're talking about. And then truly, well, truly is our alt description. So we see that's what happens if it can't load the image. It gives an alternative text. Truly, whatever that is. Truly, trully, I don't know. Whatever those things are. I'm not cultured enough. Okay. So we can learn a lot more and play with things on that W3 Schools. Check that site out. Now, we can get into a little more CSS. We have our class 1, right? That's our paragraph. Okay. So if we come back over here, you see above the T, let's get rid of all those links. Above the T, and below the T in this, right, there's not a lot of space before that red. And that background is just to contain that paragraph, but it's defaulting to a width of auto. So it's creating this background, it's creating this space just enough really to contain that at a full width. So what if we want to create more space around the text that's red? So we want to add a padding, right? Okay, so we come in here, paddings are really cool. Padding, colon, and then what do we want to say? Let's give it 25 pixels. Okay, if I leave it at this padding of 25 pixels, what this will actually do is it'll add a 25 pixel buffer to the top, the right, the bottom, and the left of our text. Okay, do that. Come back in here. You'll see now there's 25 pixels to the left of that T, above it, and below it. And way over here, there'll actually be a padding there. But say we like that it's kind of indented there, 25 pixels, but we want more space from the top and the bottom. How do we do that? So if we have one value, it is 25 pixels, all four sides of it. If we have two values, this will be 25 pixels top and bottom, 10 pixels left and right. So this will not accomplish what we want. It'll actually move it a little bit over. So what we wanted, what did we say? We wanted to do 25 pixels to the left and right and 10 to the top and bottom. So we could say 10 pixels top and bottom, 25 pixels left and right. We can also spell it out completely. 10 pixels top, 25 pixels right, 10 pixels bottom, 25 pixels left, in that order, going around a clock. Top, right, bottom, left. It's important to remember that order. So that'll accomplish our goal. Oh, we wanted more. Whatever. We created less. Sorry, 10 pixels is obviously less than 25. So now we have 25 pixels from the side of the red to the T and 10 on the top and the bottom. So what if we don't want that red to be all the way to the left? We want to create some space between this guy and this guy of the red box. Well, that would be margin. Okay, and so in a minute we're going to talk about the difference, but let's add a 25 pixels all the way around, top, bottom, right, and left. Margin, and you see it bumps out the entire thing. Now, padding is inside the element. The element has a background of red. Padding affects the inside of it. Okay, so it creates this space inside of the element. That gives us a padding for our text. Margin affects the space outside of the element. So margin does not get colored red in this instance because it's outside of that space that gets colored red. Margin outside of the element, padding inside. It's a great way to think of it with a background color. It becomes very apparent. Okay, so those are padding and our margin. So another way we can also look at this, we can come back down to our image. And remember we said about div tags, so we can create a new tag, div, give that a class of image container, img dash container, say, whatever, name it whatever you want. Close that out. We don't want it to close there. We want to close it after the image and after the link. Okay, so now inside that class is all of this stuff. Well, let's give that class a little something. What do we call it? Image dash container. Let's give it a background color of yellow. And let's also give it a padding of 25 pixels. All right, what do you think is going to happen here? We're going to have our image with a background color of yellow around it, but we're going to have a 25 pixel, what might look like a bit of a border, if you will. But of course, we have this div, which is going to span the entire width. So we can see how padding works in a div tag and how anything inside that div tag will have that padding. And you can always nest div tags within div tags, and it can get pretty crazy. And if we want to center this image, there's a couple ways we can do it. We can create we have our div class image container, and then within it we have our image, or if we want that link and that image to still be contained, again, we can nest div class and then like link image, right? Whatever. And close that div out. Whoops. Bump that out. Whenever I create divs, I indent to the next one. It just helps organize. So now we have another div in there. So in our image container, I added auto. I want to add 100%. All right, our width for the image container is 100%. But now we also have, what did I just call it? Image. No, I don't even remember what I called it. Link image. Link image. Okay, so we have our link image, and then we can give it a margin of auto. Okay, so margin auto is a kind of confusing thing. So the left and right margins are auto. It's going to center it, but it will only center it if the element that has the margin of auto has a set width. So let's give it a width of 100 pixels. So now what we'll see is that image becomes centered. So the margin on this side is auto-determined. The margin on this side is auto-determined. So that's it's gonna balance them out basically, which will put your image roughly in the center. Now, again, it's the center of the containing box. Okay. Now, one thing I will show you real quick, if that containing box is a width of say 50%. All right. This will shift it because that box is not centered, right? The image container box, the yellow box, is not centered. It is only 50% of the window. And so the leaf is centered within its parent. Its parent is image container. So it's centered within that, but that is only 50% wide from left to right. We could also center that to get things centered, but I just want you to see how it centers it within the parent. The margin auto will center it within the parent. And that works for various displays. We'll get into flex boxes in the future, and things will start to look a little different with that. But that's a basic way to start to add a little left or right layout, and we'll talk more about layout in class on Monday. But go ahead and play with this stuff, and again, go to W3 Schools, and you got CSS over here too. You can do under tutorials, right? There's more information on margins, more information on padding, height, width. We got fonts. We can change fonts, mess with borders, right? Text color, background colors. And just start to mess around with this stuff. Have fun, get creative, start applying different classes, have some divs. So on Monday, what I'd love to see you guys do is have a link, at least a link, have an image on your index HTML file, have an image, okay, and have a couple different classes with different properties and different styles on them. If you want to try and mess around, centering some stuff, adjusting things here and there. There's also a thing, so I'll just show you this and we'll talk about it a little more on class on Monday. But float, if you want to float right, if it's a display of block, you can float it right. And now you see it moves that whole thing to the right, that 50% container. To the right. So we can start to mess with some things, but for the most part we're still very blocky, and things are going to kind of might push things in ways you don't expect them to. And we'll talk about layout. Layout, it gets to be kind of a tricky thing, and we're going to dive into flex boxes. Maybe on Monday we might look at a couple other alternatives. So mess around with this stuff, but Monday, look, try to have a couple different classes, right? A link, an image, mess around with the stuff. We got headers, H1 tags is your header 1, You can do H, however many. I don't actually think there's a limit. And we can adjust that here. But by default, you'll see that a header, now this will become a header, is big. It has some margins, right? And we can adjust all of the styles we want for that. Yeah, so go ahead, mess around, try to get things working, and have fun. Come up with something creative. Maybe think about what you want to make your site as we go forward into the coming weeks to the rest of the semester. We're going to build that a site personal to you out. So think about that. Maybe begin kind of pulling in some images from that, right? We can pull some links to other sites that have to do with whatever we're making our site about. And then we'll look at different headers, navigation, and stuff like that. We can create nav bars and all sorts of stuff. We'll begin to look at that next class, and probably nav bars will probably be in the next video next week. But again, have fun, mess around, read W3 Schools, look at all this stuff, and we'll see you on Monday.